Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 82 of The Best Games Period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me this week is Daniel Jones. Say hello,
What's
Daniel.
happening? Hi.
Or what's
How's it
what's
going,
happening?
Jack?
You know what? Fine. Don't listen to me at all. Hi, Daniel. How's it going?
It's going. What's the matter? What? Did I interrupt you? What happened?
You know what? Never mind. This is episode 82 of The Best Games Period, where we endeavor and do our darndest every week to select one game. Sometimes we pit two games against each other, but for the most part, one game that we think might be up for being known as one of the best games, period. Which, is basically just Video Game Hall of Fame, or if you want to be a little bit more pretentious about it, video game canon. And then we just kind of talk about what makes it great, or what makes it not great, or, put forth our arguments and have a swell old time. And, this week we're going to be talking about Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing. Speaking of Wolfenstein, I've been playing a bunch of the new Colossus, the sequel to the New Order.
Oh yeah,
it's good.
How's that?
It's good.
There's a plane.
I'm gonna just speak bluntly. I've been noticing a real trend about myself and games lately.
Okay.
And maybe it's just that I'm getting older, and maybe it's that I'm a pretentious jerk. I don't know. But
Well, I mean, you are, but that might not have anything to do with this. Go on.
True. But I've noticed with a lot of games lately that I'm not super interested in doing the actual game part of the game. And I am playing the New Order, and the New Colossus, and you'll hear me talk about the New Order, and I love it. And so I want to love the New Colossus, and I like the characters, and I love the writing, and exploring the U-boat, and the world, and the art. But every time I have to fight some dudes, I just want to put the controller down and stop. I don't know why. I have this crazy urge to not play any of the action shooting parts of that game. And it's not that they're bad.
Is it specific to the New Colossus?
No.
Or is that a wider thing?
It's not. That's the thing. It's not. Breath of the Wild, I've been playing that a bit, and anytime I have to, fight a bunch of dudes, I avoid it. I just go and try to find secrets and explore and do that kind of stuff. And if there's enemies around, I just circumvent them as often as possible. I've been playing Hellblade, and that game's the same way. There's really intense story moments, and there's some puzzles and a lot of environmental storytelling, and it's super intense all around. But then you get to these fighting sequences, and they're fine. It's very close quarters combat, hand to hand, not hand to hand, but sword to sword, or whatever the hell they call that.
That would also be called hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But you have a sword in your hand. All right. So anyway, hand-to-hand combat, and it's very one-on-one, very intimate combat, and it's kind of interesting. I think it's kind of neat, but I don't want to do it. Every time I come up on this fighting sequence, I just don't want to do it.
I mean, to be fair, the combat in Hellblade is really not great.
Oh, so you've played Hellblade?
I'm a little ways into it. I'm not super far, but
have you beaten any of the bosses yet?
I think I just got past the first one. I fought the fire troll.
Yeah, I did that too. That's the one I'm at.
And
I beat him, and now I'm on to the next guy, and I just don't feel like it.
Well, I mean, the combat almost feels like it's there by necessity. Like,
Yeah.
They're, or like, not by necessity, but like as an afterthought, like, oh, I guess we need to have combat.
That would be the definition of necessity.
Yeah, but it's like they made most of the game and then we're like, oh yeah, we do need to do this thing.
Yeah, it's just obligatory.
Yeah. Which doesn't, like, it's very cinematic, it's very tense, but the actual fighting itself feels, I think maybe it's for me, we're getting a little bit off on a tangent specifically about Hellblade, but I think for me, it's almost that the enemies are unearned. Like, there's no, everything else in the game is really well set up and kind of builds upon itself, but the enemies literally just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, they just appear out of nowhere, and there's no explanation as to who they are.
And I mean,
what they are, and maybe they're just figments of her imagination. But
yeah, and I get it if it's that aspect of it, but it makes the fighting less interesting when it's a conflict where you only know one side, which almost always makes things less interesting. Like, it'd be like Star Wars is literally just Luke Skywalker flying up in an X-Wing and blowing up the Death Star and being like, yay, we did it! We won the battle! And it's like, well, you don't know who's on the Death Star, are they bad? What are the stakes?
Yeah.
And we do know this, like, obviously there are a lot of differences. My example is not very good because I just came up with it on the fly.
No, it's really not. It doesn't make much sense.
But I mean, like, we don't know any of the past history of these shadow things or why they're there, and maybe that's explained later on in the game. I am kind of guessing it is because Ninja Theory is a pretty great developer, but it, at least at the beginning, I'm not very engaged in the combat.
Yeah, me neither. And to be honest, I mean, to be fair, the puzzles are also not great. They're very simple and kind of annoying. Just finding a shape in the environment and lining it up, and that's about it. And it's I want to like that game, and the same with New Colossus. I want to like it, but every time I come up on the action sequences, I just don't want to continue playing. And especially in the New Colossus's case, the action's actually really good. It's just, it's not quite on the level as like the new Doom, which, or even a game like Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, where the fighting is the game, and it's almost balletic in just how well integrated it is into the whole experience, and how important it is to the whole thing. And just, there's a lot of nuance, and there's a rhythm to it, and Wolfenstein does not have that. It definitely lacks that. There's stealth, and I remember, like, we'll get into this, but I remember really enjoying the stealth in the New Order, and I do not like the stealth in this game. I feel under-equipped. Like, it just isn't working for me, and I feel like the levels aren't laid out quite well enough for me to really be stealthy. I'm never finding any opportunities to really stealth around, and then when you do get caught, it is just like the New Order. Like, you can blast your way through it, but man, it's overwhelming, and I don't remember the New Order being ramped up to 11 like right from the get-go. But this definitely is. There's just tons of weird dudes, and I'm probably 5 hours in or so. But
okay.
So I'm getting farther in it, but it's just, I don't know. I'm having trouble with it. Also, it doesn't help that I'm super tired all the time, and I got a promotion at work, so now I'm just really busy, and I come home and my feet hurt, and I'm tired and exhausted and want to go to sleep at like 8:30 at night. And so,
you're such an adult. Ugh.
I know. I am. It's awful. It's awful. And I have to stay up till like midnight just to play an hour or two of this game if I want to, and I can't. I just can't. I'm old and falling apart. Jack, how are you?
About the same. To be honest, I've been falling apart for a long time.
Oh man.
No. We just came off of Extra Life weekend, game day. I was helping with the Game Informer live stream. Unfortunately, I had to bow out.
I watched some with you on it.
Oh, I was on it. Okay. Awesome.
Oh, you didn't know you were on it?
No, I knew I was on it like 3 times, but I didn't know it wasn't like super long portions that I was on the stream.
Yeah.
So
it was you and Miller.
Oh yeah, I
What I
did an
watched.
auction. Yeah.
Yep.
But it was a really great time. We ended up raising over $10,000 more than we raised last year, which was pretty fantastic. Like I think overall, Extra Life this year raised $700,000 more just on game day than they had in previous years. So I'd say it's pretty big success.
That's amazing.
Pretty happy. The Game Informer stream was amazing. I highly recommend people who didn't get to see it live go and look over some of those clips. We had people shaving their heads. We had pies to the face.
We had
ghost peppers. We had crazy hats and wigs and costumes and gameplay segments. I think at some point someone donated so that someone on staff would get pied in the face with a pie that also had hair from someone else's shaved head in it. Yeah, hair pie. Oh
God.
It was pretty great. And also, like, honestly, it's getting to the point where people should really just tune into those live streams for the auctions, because they auctioned off a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
There was a original cell from the Cuphead developers, an animation cell. There was an original drawing of Sonic the Hedgehog by the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog. There was they had at the end of the day about 8 PCs and Oculuses bundled together, and those were being auctioned off, like just a ready-made gaming PC with an Oculus Rift. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. And they showed some games that aren't even out yet in America on the live stream. One being this game called A City Shrouded in Shadow, which looks super great. I'm really excited. I hope that gets localized for the United States, because it's essentially you play as a civilian on the ground when all of a sudden giant monsters start attacking.
Nice.
And your job is just to kind of survive, and it's like an adventure game. Like, you encounter other survivors, and you have dialogue options that can kind of affect the course of the story, and you're just trying to figure out what's going on. So that looked super cool. And it has all of the rights to, like, the Godzilla franchise, the Gamera franchise, the Neon Genesis Evangelion franchise.
Oh my god.
Like all these different things, Ultraman. So they have all these licensed characters showing up to destroy the city you're in, and it's pretty crazy. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing. I had to leave early from the stream just because I threw my back out like 2 weeks ago ish.
You are old.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding about falling apart. I left after about 14 hours working behind the scenes on the stream. but it was really neat. It gets better and better every year, like
Yeah.
across the board. Like not just Game Informer, but pretty much everyone who keeps doing it and comes back gets a little bit better each year. So I'm excited to see where things go next year.
You had some requests from people asking you to do some things.
I did?
Didn't you?
I don't know.
I don't know. Did you do anything crazy on the stream?
I didn't.
Oh, that's too bad.
I guess people did start calling for everyone to gang up on me when we played Super Smash Brothers. That's about it.
Okay.
I'm saying a lot. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
That being said, I've been trying to play some more new things. I took a risk, and there's this game that recently came out that didn't get a whole lot of buzz or really any ads that I can remember. It was overshadowed a lot by Wolfenstein 2 and Super Mario Odyssey, but it's this open world RPG called Elex, E-L-E-X.
Yeah, I have not heard good things about it though.
It's terrible. That is why you haven't heard good things about it. It's really bad. I bought it with the intent of reviewing it, and it is just like I played over 12 hours, and I'm just not willing to subject myself to it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just really frustrating. And it's part of the reason why it's frustrating is it has so much potential, and it just is never quite able to deliver on it. Like, the basic premise is cool. It's basically Fallout 3, Mad Max, plus The Witcher 3. And that's cool, but in execution, it just falls on its face.
Yeah.
The very first NPC you talk to in this dialogue-heavy RPG is a guy that tells you several times in the same conversation thread that, hey, you can get supplies at the nearby town. Did you know that? Did you know you could get supplies at the nearby town?
So
at the nearby town, you can get supplies, Daniel.
So basically, they just want you to get supplies. Or they just want you to know that that's where you get supplies.
Yeah, but it's just, like, that's the very first conversation you have with someone, and it never gets any better.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's frustrating. But anyway, if you're really curious about Elex, go for it. It's by the same people who made the Risen franchise, and which is also I believe an equally mixed franchise when it comes to critical reception. I would only recommend you pick up Elex if it's like $5 on a Steam super sale in like 2 years. Otherwise, I give it like a 3 out of 10. Like, it's not great. Anyway, that's about all I've been playing, aside from some Stellaris and some PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I missed some S's in there.
PlayerUnknown's.
Yeah.
Unknown. No? I don't know. Well.
But, yeah, we're here. We need to talk about a different Nazi shooty game called The New Order. Not first, The New Colossus.
Let's make sure we cover this. The poll for our last episode, before our last non-honorable mention episode, was for Amnesia: The Dark Descent for our Halloween episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Amnesia was we both liked it. We both said it was a best game, period. And everybody else didn't. Not everybody, but most people
it was
said
overwhelming.
No. It was very overwhelming. Yes.
I don't know. I cannot fathom how you could think that it doesn't belong in the best games, period. I'm not saying you all are wrong. I'm just saying it's very hard for me to understand how it's such a hard no. Like, you see games all the time today that use stuff that was established in the Penumbra and Amnesia games, and it's just a little weird that we aren't recognizing that. But you know what? I think I have better taste than most people, so, whatever.
Shit.
Hair flip.
Wow.
Shade thrown.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's find out. Let's talk about Wolfenstein: The New Order, Jack.
Okay.
All right.
We're talking about it now.
So, just FYI, everybody, spoilers ahead. If you haven't played The New Order and you want to play it before you listen to this, then go for it and just come back to this whenever you're done. All right. So, did you finish the entire game?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I am going to say right off the bat, you are very wrong about how The New Order does not start out on a big bang, because it literally starts out in a giant plane invasion of the Death's Head compound.
I didn't say it doesn't.
You did. Earlier in this podcast, yeah.
Oh. I don't remember that.
Rewind the tapes.
What do you mean? What did I say?
You said it doesn't start out with as much of a bang as the new Colossus. Like, you were talking about the combat and stuff.
Yeah.
And you were comparing the new Colossus to the New Order.
Oh, no, what I meant was that you don't get overwhelmed with enemies.
Oh, gotcha.
In the New Order. There's more of a ramp up, sort of, to the challenge. And even playing on the easiest level, I like to play these games on the easiest level. It's not about feeling challenged, it's just about feeling kind of overwhelmed with just dudes everywhere, and I can shoot them and I can handle it. It's just sometimes, it's just enough already. But anyway, yeah, this game does start with, a lot of people didn't like the opening of the New Order, though. They said that it felt like a very cliche, stereotypical opening to a World War II shooter. And I guess I don't really get that. Like, Call of Duty doesn't have giant robot dogs running around. And you're not.
I mean, here are my initial thoughts. My initial thoughts on the New Order is just that opening is I believe, supposed to be a somewhat stereotypical introduction.
Right. It's supposed to be. Right.
While also introducing all these new elements that very clearly demonstrate to the player, this isn't your typical World War II shooter. Like, you're essentially having a Normandy invasion sequence, but instead of on the sea and on the beaches, it's in the air and in a castle, and all of a sudden there are robot dogs, and there are, these super advanced, like, Tesla soldier armors and all this stuff, and you're like, and everyone's unfazed by it. Like, it's very clearly introducing you to this world in which these are very established, commonplace things. My second response is just, it's a pretty strong opening in that it establishes the game as very specifically not being a stereotypical shooter.
Right.
Because it's very much more interested in the characters than most shooters are. Like, you spend time actually getting to know, your squad members. Like, it's not like a ton of time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of very clear dialogue that establishes bonds and kind of sets up the initial choice of the game, I suppose.
Yeah, the Fergus or Wyatt choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially players play through this invasion sequence. Their squad gets trapped by Death's Head, who's this fictional Nazi general that is kind of like a Joseph Mengele type, who essentially makes the player choose either choose one of their squad mates to be executed in this sequence, and it does a really good job as establishing, hey, this guy's the villain. And then in the escape sequence that follows, main character BJ Blazkowicz gets shrapnel in his brain and enters a 14-year coma.
Yeah, I never really understood how he survived, because, I mean, he went unconscious and then dropped into the ocean. And how did they get him out in time before he just drowned?
Well, in the cutscene, they show that he might have been in the ocean, but he ends up on like a floating plank of wood.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I don't know how that works either.
It's the same. I think it's just one of those things we're supposed to take on video game faith, like the same way he was able to survive. We need to just accept that, the same way that we are supposed to be able to accept that after 14 years of
he
not
just
using
wakes
his
up
muscles,
and starts shooting dudes.
Yeah. So he's unidentified, and he gets sent to this Polish mental hospital to recover, and he's still somewhat aware of his surroundings. He just can't move or really register anything, and he kind of develops a silent relationship with Anya, who is his nurse type person. And then Nazis come and are shutting down the hospital and murder Anya's parents, who run the hospital. And that is the impetus that BJ needs to wake up out of his comatose state and start stabbing more Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, he literally lives to kill Nazis. And so he was just in a coma, and he had no reasons really to wake up and start killing Nazis until they started attacking the people in the hospital. So he went ahead and started attacking them back, because of course he did. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think right in that scene is kind of the strange microcosm that I think probably determines whether or not people are a fan of Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Right.
Because on the one hand, this game very much wants to be kind of this emotional journey that is genuinely heartfelt and like has things to say about the world, and kind of has this philosophical bent to it. Like throughout the game, BJ is kind of thinking to himself and has this internal monologue that kind of runs as he's going through these different situations. And his monologues are strangely, like, in a weird way, a little poetic.
Right.
Whereas his outward, actions and words are much more direct, to the point, and usually violent. And I think that there's a subset of people that want it one way or the other, and not both. Either go full in on the heartfelt storyline approach and kind of do away with the ridiculousness of the premise, or go full in on the violence and embrace the ridiculousness of the premise.
Right.
Because there are some people who can't accept, like, there's just the cognitive dissonance of
yes,
giant robot dogs, man dealing with his PTSD. And along that same line, it's very strange to hear these almost poetic inner thoughts of this severely traumatized soldier. Like, there's no way you get around that. Blazkowicz is very much damaged both physically and mentally, not just by that shrapnel, but also by all the things he's seen and had to do.
Yeah. And the thing about it is that this game takes place after all the other games that had come before it in the series, basically. Like, it's it's a direct sequel, actually. Like, people don't really talk about that, but they designed it as a direct sequel to the Raven Software Wolfenstein game that had come out prior to this. It was the last one.
Which I believe kind of bombed, right?
Yeah, it did not do well, and it apparently is not a very good game. But so my point is that, like, BJ has had a history of killing Nazis, so he's seen some shit.
My question is, how old is he supposed to be in the New Order?
That's a good question.
Because he does
14 years pass and he does not age.
Yeah, it's like he must have been like late 20s and now maybe early 40s?
Mid 40s, early 40s, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird scenario.
Yeah.
And I also think there is, and this might be even where I have problems with the game, is you have this very introspective person on the inside who at the same time is willing to chainsaw a Nazi to death. Like, there are very, with no second thoughts or anything like that. And on the one hand, I recognize that it's a Wolfenstein game and it's supposed to be kind of this revenge fantasy. But on the other hand, it is very... There's something that's not quite clicking there for me. I'm not entirely sure how to put that into words.
I think the thing with BJ that I've kind of noticed even more with the new Colossus is that he knows that he's a blunt instrument, and he kind of embraces it to the point that if you really pay attention to his actions, he's just doing what other people want him to do. But he takes liberties with how he does it sometimes. And he is absolutely an errand boy in the new Colossus, especially. And I think in the New Order, he's got a little bit more agency than it seems like he does in the new Colossus, at least so far, from what I've played so far. But for the most part, he really is just doing what he's told by other people. You see it even early in that game when Anya's grandfather is just kind of telling him what to do, you know, and grandmother, and he's feeding off of their anger and their pain and trying to make things better for them. He has very strong paternal instincts in that regard, and that's what he's been trained to do as a soldier. That his job is to protect, and that is what he's doing, and he's just doing it any way he can, and that includes chainsawing this dude to get information from him. And then when he gets the information, he still just chainsaws him, and it doesn't matter. He's doing that just to get back at him because of the hurt and the pain that he had caused this family. And it's just like, that's where he's coming from. It's all in his heart, and I think that's why the kind of inner monologue works, because you see that, like, he truly hates Nazis, and he is violent and dangerous and angry, but the monologue is there to kind of give you reasons for that and give context for that, and that's why it works for me. And they kind of continue that in the new Colossus, but not it's not quite the same. He's not as poetic. It's more just talking to himself. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Yeah,
do you see what I'm saying at all?
I do see what you're saying. The only, and this kind of cropped up. I was reading a bunch of reviews for the New Order, and it's not just me pointing this out. It came up over and over again, but there is a weird It's kind of at odds to have this vibrant internal dialogue that shows that this character has a lot of depth. There's a lot going on there. But then you also have all of the brutality that he puts out, and it's never really explored, and everyone around him seems to perfectly understand that and accept it, and like has no problems with it. That brutality never really seems to, hit many of the people around him. And it's so I guess to me it's weird because you have this soldier who's very clearly dealing with PTSD. You have this character who also has brain damage, and that's almost never brought up. It doesn't seem to be a huge part of the New Order at all.
Yeah,
his brain damage and essentially is just a time travel device.
Right.
It's a plot device.
It is.
Which I think is kind of a missed opportunity for the game, because I think it'd be really interesting to have a main character who is to some degree dealing with a mental disability. And I don't know.
You should play the new Colossus.
It just feels like the game's trying to have its cake of being a serious drama and eat it too, while being like this crazy over-the-top shooter that has a bunch of rampaging violence in it, and the two things are very much at odds with one another. And I think that's kind of something that either pushed people away or brought them in, but I don't know that those two halves can coexist very well together. The closest I think that kind of came to capturing that same spirit is The Last of Us.
Right.
But that's also because The Last of Us very clearly paints Joel out to be this almost monstrous character.
Right.
In this game, BJ Blazkowicz, MachineGames, the developers, very clearly take pains to paint BJ as a hero. And I mean, he's killing Nazis, so who's to argue with that? But
well, I think that's the thing. That's the key, is that that's one of the things that I meant when I said that he's just kind of a blunt instrument, is that everybody in this world has that anger and that furiousness to them that you're talking about with BJ. He's not the only violent character in that world on the good side. No. They're all like that. I mean, they all want to kill Nazis. There's nobody in that game who's saying no, let's hear them out. Let's talk to them. No, because I think that maybe they don't get this point across as well, but they've spent decades now fighting them and seeing the atrocities that Nazis have committed, and there's no room for empathy at all in that world, from them anyway. And so I don't know. That's what I mean. Like everybody in that world is that way, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, everything in this game is very much on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure that it works 100% together. It works to some degree, but I think at least in some ways it stumbles a little bit.
I think you're right. I think a lot of me saying that is me projecting. And also the fact that I've played a bunch of the new Colossus, I think it gives a lot more context to that world than the New Order did. I've already talked about the new Colossus on this episode and said some not great things about it, but I actually really do appreciate the story setup in that game, and just the dialogue and the flavor text. They do an exceptional job of exploring some of those lost opportunities that you were talking about. There's there's a lot of cool stuff in the new Colossus. It sort of shines a light on the failures of the New Order because of how much better the sequel does.
Okay, interesting. I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
But this is not an episode on
No, it's
the new
not.
Colossus. It's an episode on the New Order. So we've kind of been bogged down in this opening act of the New Order. What is the gameplay like?
So, maybe, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, but
okay,
when I was playing the New Order, I kept getting GoldenEye vibes the entire time. Like, I always felt like in GoldenEye you could kind of stealth a bit if you wanted to. You didn't have much in the way of like sneak attacks, and you weren't about to take down guys with your bare hands in GoldenEye. That wasn't really a thing that you did very often, but you had the silenced pistols and you had like a silenced sniper
Slappers
rifle.
only, mother trucker.
Yeah, man. So those were really good options for stealth, and the levels were laid out such that you could stealth around them really well, and the AI was dumb enough that you could stealth without guys seeing you from across the map or seeing another guy go down from way across the map or whatever. And then when the stealth fell through, you had no problem running and gunning. It was manageable and still a lot of fun. So I feel like the New Order did a lot of the same kind of stuff as GoldenEye, and because most of your enemies were humans, and were fairly stationary, it was very similar. I got a lot of GoldenEye vibes from most of that game. I don't know how you felt about it.
I mean, I can see that. It has very much a certain James Bondy / cinematic movie feel to it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the lead up to this game at all? Like how they were kind of advertising it?
Not really. I remember not being super excited for it until about a month before it came out, and then I saw some ads and some trailers and thought it looked amazing, but I don't remember specifics about them.
I mean, they were kind of touting how it was going to be this. It was going to be like about choice and stuff like that, and I think choice, like how you play the game, and there is kind of an RPG like system as you play through the game where whatever method you're using to kill people, be it stealth, be it pistols, be it dual wielding, single rifle, dual wielding heavy machine guns.
Yeah,
the more you do it, the better you get.
Right, you upgrade weapons the more you use them.
Yeah, but and so each of these sections of the game, each of these gameplay segments, basically has two modes. You enter the map, you're undetected, and you can either just go in guns blazing, or you can try and stealth your way through and undetected.
Right. And
I remember the first time I played through the game, I loved the stealth. I tried to do everything stealthily.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good time. But this game is also really more made for running in guns blazing. Like,
absolutely.
It is there's a reason that there's dual wielding, and you're just popping off at everything. And it's super fun. It's super fun to just run in like a giant grizzled tank and mow everything down. In that sense, it has a very arcade-like feel. I don't feel like it supported stealth super well. Your options were always pretty limited, and stealth always felt more like a way to kind of scout out the area first and maybe take out a few of the guards before you ended up getting detected. Because once you're detected, you're detected, and it's time to go, kind of flip the switch and go guns blazing.
Now, I'm trying to remember. Could you tag guys?
I don't think so.
Tag enemies? I don't, yeah. Because you can't in the new Colossus, and it bothers the hell out of me. Maybe it's just...
you can't.
I've been playing too much Uncharted. I don't know.
Well, also, Metal Gear Solid 5 came out between the New Order and now, so our expectations of stealth gameplay are very much skewed in a certain direction.
I really feel like you could.
I mean, I played through some of it prior to recording this, and there was no real tagging going on.
All right. Okay.
Or should we say Guten Tagging? But it's also one of the things that kind of bugs me before we move completely beyond what we were talking about with character and stuff. It does kind of bug me that they've never really clarified whether or not BJ Blazkowicz is Jewish or not.
Continue playing the series and play New Colossus. That's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, but when they released this and all throughout the series, they've always kind of played coy with the idea of, is he Jewish or not? And that seems really weird to me. Just say that he is or is not. Yep. And because that one fact alone would make a huge difference in public perception of his character. Him being Jewish on top of everything else and fighting Nazis is almost like a Quentin Tarantino level, 1-2 punch against the very idea of Nazis.
Yeah. Well, his character was modeled after Hugo Stieglitz from Inglourious Bastards, who I think was Jewish? No, because he was German.
He was modeled after a character from that movie?
Yes.
Really? I thought he was just modeled after the classic Wolfenstein character portrait.
I mean, yes, but if he was, according to
is he or is he not?
According
Daniel?
to Did You Know Gaming, anyway, he was modeled after Hugo Stieglitz, or at least the actor who played Hugo Stieglitz in Inglourious Bastards, who was German and not Jewish.
Okay.
So
you really clarified things.
Yeah, I didn't at all, but I'm just saying. You were drawing parallels to Quentin Tarantino, so I continued down that line. But I don't know. The other thing that bothered me about the New Order was just the length of it. It was an exceptionally long game, and
really, you thought it was very long?
I felt like it was too long. It was 20 hours, which I think is too long for a shooter.
I don't know that it was that long. I think a lot of people beat that game in about 9 hours.
No.
Yeah, 9 to 10 hours.
We're going time to beat.
I think your experience might not have been typical.
Time to beat Wolfenstein, the New Order. I don't know. Maybe it just felt like a really long, or how long to beat. Not
dead air, nothing but dead air.
Main story 11.5 hours. Main plus extras 15.5, and I feel like I did a lot of the extras. Completionist 25 hours.
Well, then maybe that's your own fault, Daniel.
Whatever. I don't know. I just felt like it was just taking a long time to beat.
I think it did feel maybe longer
Pacing dragged.
Longer than it might have otherwise been, because basically if you die, you kind of start over quite a ways. Especially if you're trying to do stealth.
Are you saying I died a lot?
Well, no, I'm just saying, especially if you're doing stealth, basically, if you get discovered and die, and you're trying to go full stealth, you start back over at the beginning of the stealth segment.
I didn't die a lot.
You have to do the entire thing over again.
I was playing on easy mode. I didn't
Oh,
die.
well. Oh, you're playing on the baby mode.
I was playing on the baby mode. I did not die a lot, Jack.
Mode,
I just was
the
exploring
mode where they
a
show
lot.
him as a baby.
I like playing those games on the easy mode. It's just more fun to just mow down the Nazis. Also, I don't like dual wielding weapons in that game.
Really?
I kind of generally don't like dual wielding weapons in general.
Interesting.
Because I can't aim down the sights. I really appreciate aiming down the sights, and you can't do that when you're dual wielding.
Okay.
So
That's true.
maybe if I was playing on PC, I wouldn't mind it as much, because aiming down the sights on console is often just kind of a shorthand for auto aim or aim assist, which you kind of need on consoles.
Yeah.
Because it's not exact. And if I was playing on PC, it'd be more exact, so I would be able to, compensate.
Yeah. I get that.
What did you think about some of the characters besides BJ? What about Anya and Caroline and Fergus and
I am going to be 100% honest. I do not remember any of the characters from the only character I remember from the New Order is Anya.
Yep.
And Max.
Max Haas.
Who is basically the Hodor of
Yes, he is basically Hodor.
The New Order.
Yep.
And that's it. I also remember Death's Head. I remember the final boss encounter.
You don't remember Engel? Not Caroline Engel. Forget her name.
Frau Engel.
Frau Engel, but I forget her actual first name. Yeah.
I barely.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of my main crux against the New Order, is that at the time when I was playing it, it was very fun, and I thought it was great. I thought the overall story and experience was very satisfactory, and it hasn't really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Over time.
No, I agree.
And I think if we had done this podcast, 3 years ago when it came out, I would have said, "Yeah, this is up there, man."
Right.
Like, I think this is a perfect example of why we kind of have that 1 year rule, so that we have some time to reflect on stuff before we put it on the podcast. Because it's not that time has been unkind to the New Order. It is more that it's very ephemeral.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good in the moment. It's very visceral. It feels good to play, and then it's just kind of done, and it doesn't leave a huge impact, which is kind of my linking back to my original point. Like, that's kind of the problem with it, is because it wants to be this very fun, enjoyable shooter that is just easy to play and is super great and has all these ridiculous things happen, but it also wants to leave an impact, and it doesn't really successfully do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember BJ, you remember you remember the BJ, but I had almost completely forgotten that you even go to the moon.
Yeah.
There's a section in this game, and I might be not remembering this 100% accurately, but is there or is there not a secret organization of Jewish scientists that have these caches of technology hidden around the world from like 100 years in the future? Is that...
I don't remember the 100 years in the future part, but yes.
But it's like super advanced.
Yeah. And one of them becomes a main side character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's in the sequel too.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot of crazy stuff in it. But yeah, I totally agree with you about those characters. A lot of them I just do not remember very well. And I remember Anya because I think some of the sequences with her are really well handled. Like the sex sequence on the train, I thought was really interesting. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. It was perfect. It walked that balance, that line that these Wolfenstein games are trying to walk, and it walked it really well between just being absurd but also being like heartfelt and interesting. So I thought that sex scene was really good.
Yeah, like it's very tasteful.
Yes,
like the sex in the New Order is very tasteful, very adult and mature for a game that is, at least when it comes to violence, very juvenile.
Yeah.
And it's another part where it almost feels like there are this Jekyll and Hyde half of
right.
these Jekyll and Hyde versions of the same game, kind of trying to duke it out for supremacy. And like, I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to advocate for. Like, if they should have split this up into two separate games, like one being kind of like the Saving Private Ryan type, you know how in Saving Private Ryan there's like the shell story of the veteran going to visit the grave?
Yeah, the bookends, basically.
Yeah. Like, that would be kind of the serious walking simulator section of Wolfenstein, and then you'd have kind of the juvenile, angsty war segments.
That's an interesting way to look at it, yeah.
Like, because it almost feels like they're trying to do both things, and they can't really mash them together super well. Like, it's also just hard to take... I from a visual perspective, it's hard to take BJ Blazkowicz seriously as a character. For me, at least, because he's basically... And it's the same thing I had about Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 5. But he's basically built like a meat refrigerator.
Yeah.
Like, he's just this hulking man.
Yeah.
And he looks like a strongman cartoon, but in the real world, and it's hard for me to visualize him being taken super seriously as a conscientious lead. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's I'm showing my biases, and I should be ashamed of myself.
I think you should,
and do some introspection.
Yeah.
But
well, they don't...
Meat refrigerator men can have feelings too.
Outside of his inner monologues, they don't really earn that. They don't really earn that respect. God, no. See, I don't think
you're
that's
onto
true.
Something. I do think it is true, because if you're just walking into Wolfenstein the New Order, not having played any of the other Wolfenstein games, and even if you have played the other Wolfenstein games, the only, like, glimpse of his backstory or any kind of, like, defining character history is, like, a vision of what he hopes his life would be like in a warless world, which is, like, him, like, laying out on the lawn, and there's, like, a barbecue going, and there's a dog and, like, a white picket fence, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we get, all we see of him is in war. Like, we don't see him, we don't see what his life was actually like back home. We don't see what he's fighting for, other than kind of what we're bringing with us into the game and projecting onto him.
Yeah, a lot of it is projection. Yeah, totally.
And I think that's one of the difficult things about this game as well, is because we're very often in first-person shooters asked to project ourselves onto the character, and in the New Order, he has his own character, but it's also still asking us to project certain things onto him. I think Jens Matthews is the director of the New Order. Yep. He gave an interview to Gama Sutra, and he said basically the goal was to have a protagonist that's not so neutral that you can project yourself onto them. Instead, the goal was to have a protagonist that is so relatable you want to become them, which that's a weird stance to take on your protagonist, right? Like, does anybody want to be BJ Blazkowicz? I mean, like, there is the certain, like, revenge fantasy thing of, like, fighting Nazis.
Well, I guess I'm not clear on what exactly he means by that, because I don't consider BJ to be super charismatic, if that's what he means. I don't know.
Well, so, like, there's also another quote from, he gave an interview to the Sydney Morning Herald. We always loved the idea of a prototypical action hero exterior juxtaposed with a rich and vulnerable interior psychology.
Right.
So I guess it's like that. The interior monologues that we hear are supposed to make up kind of our understanding of BJ as a character. And there's just nothing relatable about BJ as a character because we don't know where he's coming from as a character.
Yeah, I think there's some...
I mean, there's stuff there, but it's not like we have a sequence, you know, like in Heavy Rain, you have a sequence where you're just doing dad stuff.
Right.
Before all the bad stuff happens.
Right.
You know, we don't have his character establishing shot, I guess.
No, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some subtext in his interactions with some of the other characters and his dialogue with some of the other characters, but it's never fully explored. It's never really dug into. I keep saying this, but I do think they do a better job with that with the new Colossus, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. One of the things that I want to mention, though, about this game, and one of the reasons I think that the side characters aren't as memorable as maybe they could be, is because so much of them are in the cutscenes. You don't interact with them really outside of the cutscenes and outside of the hub base, where they're all holed up.
They don't have much mechanical impact on what you're doing either.
Not even just that. They're not constant companions. They're only there during the cutscenes, and then when you're actually in the game, they're not there. They're off doing something else, and BJ's always by himself. And I always just felt like, you know, I missed them when they weren't there, and that made them much less. It made them feel like much less of an integral part of the experience because they were never there when I was actually controlling the game or playing. We keep bringing up Naughty Dog games, but like The Last of Us and the Uncharted games do a really good job with keeping those characters around during the gameplay. So not only are they like, you know, mechanical, the gameplay, useful in the gameplay, but they're just there when you're exploring the world in the downtime, and you have that downtime to talk to them about random things and to get the subtle character relationships that Wolfenstein doesn't ever explore, and the new one doesn't do it really either.
It tries, but like you said, they never feel like companions. They feel like static parts of the world more.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point. Like even in the combat sections where you are with characters, like in that opening when you're with whichever soldier you choose to save, mechanically they don't really do much for you. You are a one-man force of nature, and you're barreling through these Nazis, and that's...
Yeah, and they're really only there for brief snippets, and they're only there when it's convenient for them to be there.
Right. So, I don't know, it's really interesting. Do you have any other parts you want to touch on?
Not necessarily. We've been super negative on this game, but I guess that's just because I really enjoyed it, but I want to love it more than I do.
We might have been saying a lot of critical.
Yeah.
We've been saying a lot of critical things about it, but I think it's generally a lot easier to be critical of things that you like.
Yes.
Because you pay more attention to that thing, and you're able to kind of see its flaws that kind of hold it back from being even better than it could be.
Definitely.
Or that just hold it back. Like, I really love the New Order. I do think it's a great game. I don't think it's one of the best games, period.
Wow.
It's just, but it is very good. Like, this is something I would nominate as an honorable mention. But I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, at least on this show.
I think I agree with you. You said that Wolfenstein: The New Order is not a best game, period, in your opinion, even though you really do like it. I agree. Same here. I
thought you were going to lean into yes, actually.
I know. I honestly did, too.
You came in thinking you were going to say yes?
I did. Or at least when we initially started talking about doing this game a week and a half ago or whatever, I was like, yeah, you know what? Yes, I think it is. But the more I've played the sequel, which does basically everything that this game does, but much better, and the more I've thought about just what the real issues I did have with this game, and the more I've tried to recall the things and moments that I really liked from it, and the hard time I've had doing that, like I've thought about it, and no, unfortunately, Wolfenstein: The New Order is a very good game and a really fine first-person shooter, and I would love to see more games that are as well written as these Wolfenstein games are, but it is not a best game, period.
And I think at least part of that is, maybe part of it is that 3 years ago, the game climate was a little bit different, and the kind of storytelling we saw in the New Order, and kind of that commitment to a more narrative focus, was more uncommon than it is today.
I don't know.
Maybe our standards are just a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, 3 years ago, 2014.
And that's the good thing about video games, and that's the interesting thing about doing the show, is that our standards are constantly evolving because this industry is still very young and still evolving a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, wrap it up.
If you're ready to.
I had a bunch of quotes and stuff that I was gonna pull out, but so I want to. Occasionally, I like to bring back that Metacritic thing that we do from time to time.
Yeah.
And this is because we both agree that this game's pretty all right. Like, it's not perfect. It's not one of the best games, period. But it's pretty darn close. It's up there.
Yeah, it's good. Real good.
I found there are several user reviews on Metacritic that give Wolfenstein: The New Order a 0 out of 10. I figured I would choose one of those to read on the podcast.
Do it.
And I found one. And let me read it. This is from The Cool 345. Cool spelled Kewl. And
of course.
it reads, "I didn't like it. Armies were too weak and dumb. They won't recognize the enemy, even they come near them. Throw a one knife at army and they die. That's just too unrealistic. Nazis in space, robots, SF weapons, which I assume stands for sci-fi weapons. That is just too unrealistic. This is not a Nazis. Robots, dogs, weapons are not good. I wanted to see battle with more realistic Nazis and real World War II weapons. I wanted exactly the same Wolfenstein 3D game, but with better graphics. Wolfenstein 3D is still my favorite game. Wolfenstein The New Order was kind of like Diamonds Are Forever. I wanted to see Hitler. Shooting games makes me bored. All the levels are shooting. I just like shooting games because I like the characters and places. I like games like Alien Isolation. No weapons is more thrill and fun. Thank you, the cool 345. He or she would probably agree with us about Amnesia, though, because that had no weapons, so that had more thrill and fun.
Alien Isolation was very much influenced by Amnesia, but yeah. All right, interesting. Good. That there was some very interesting grammar in English in that.
Indeed.
Review. Yeah. I feel like it was like too young to be playing these games, but who knows?
Who knows, indeed.
Jack, I know it just happened, but it's really a year-round thing. So, can you tell us all about Extra Life?
Heck yeah, I've been waiting all show to talk about Extra Life.
Well, you did kind of, a little bit.
I did, but I always love talking about it more.
Right.
Basically, Extra Life is this event, happens every year, where people from all across the United States and Canada get together and raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals. And it's like a 24, 25-hour long marathon to raise money and just play games. Because everyone loves playing games and helping kids, so why not do both at the same time? And one of the cool things is if you go to extra-life.org and sign up, you can actually choose which Children's Miracle Network hospital you want to support and raise money for. And 100% of everything you raise goes directly to the hospital to help sick and injured kids. It's really pretty great. And on top of that, like, I know I just said that it was an event, and I know at the beginning of the show I talked about the event that we just had. That's really more of a PR push than actually a hard date. You can actually donate year-round. You can donate on a monthly basis if you want to. You can donate all the dang time. No problem. Everything counts towards the 2017 fundraising total until the end of the year. That's simple. So you can actually head over to extra-life.org at any time, sign up, and have your own little event. Or, don't even have an event. Just sign up, donate like $20, and you know that $20 is gone to kids, and you can write it off on your taxes. So win-win-win, all the wins all the way around. That being said, you can also find this very podcast over on the community side of Extra Life at community.extra-life.org. And you can also go over there and meet up with a bunch of other Extra Lifers. You can maybe meet some people in your area, make some new friends, figure out some more fundraising options, all that good jazz. I believe there's also even a Discord Extra Life now. An official Extra Life Discord. I'm sure you can find more out about that over on community.extra-life.org or maybe even on just extra-life.org. I'm saying that URL a lot. You should probably just go there.
Yeah,
to extra-life.org.
Do it.
So that's about all I have.
All right. Well, you should also go to GameInformer.com to find this podcast every Monday, as well as iTunes, as well as Libsyn, our hosting sites, SoundCloud, Twitter @BestGames, Facebook.com/bestgamesperiod, and even Patreon.com/bestgamesperiod, where if you throw us $1 a month or more, we like more, you will get extra bonus material. And that's it. Did I hit everything? Yeah.
I believe so. I do have one thing I want to tease that will be coming up eventually.
Ooh.
We don't have a hard date for it, but we are going to be launching a new kind of side podcast, just kind of to gauge some interest, and just as kind of a for funsy project. I know I teased it last week in the honorable mention, but Daniel and I and a few other people, we're going to be playing some Dungeons and Dragons on a side podcast.
And I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, so this should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm trying to kind of come up with. We're going to be kind of playing it more old school. We're not going to be using maps or tiles or grids or anything like that. It's just going to kind of be collaborative storytelling that we're going to attempt to tackle together.
Yeah, some good old Stranger Things.
Yeah, do they do that in Stranger Things?
Yeah, there's some Dungeons and Dragons in Stranger Things.
Neat.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So we're gonna be trying to do something a little bit fun, and it's probably still a ways out. I don't know exactly when we'll be launching the actual first episode of that, but
is that a Patreon thing, Jack, or is that?
I haven't really decided what we're gonna do with that.
All right. You let us know when you decide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm not gonna say the name of it yet, though. I'm just teasing what it is.
No, don't do that.
That's it. That's all I got.
Best D&D period. No.
No, it's unrelated to our current name.
I know, I'm just teasing. All right. Jack.
Daniel.
I miss Jeremy.
Aw. Yeah. He'll be back one day.
He'll be back. He's too busy with kids.
Dang kids.
And thank you for coming on the show tonight. Because, you're always on the show, so... Thank you for joining me tonight, is what I really meant to say. And thank you, good listeners, for joining us for episode 82 of The Best Games Period. Let us know what you think of Wolfenstein when I put out the polls. That's it. Well, until next time.
Also, just tweet at us some suggestions you'd like to see on the show. I know we get a few of those from time to time. I believe we followed up on a few of those, and we kind of keep a list of suggestions and stuff. So, hearing what you want to hear about always helps us. So be sure to follow us and tweet at us on Twitter at bestgamesperiod. And
do it.
We will definitely see that. So.
Yep, we will see it. Twitter at us. All right. Till next time. See you all on the flippity dippity.